Sarah Chen stood in front of her bedroom mirror, carefully removing her designer watch and diamond earrings. Her fingers trembled slightly as she wiped off her perfectly applied makeup, replacing it with a much simpler look. The transformation had begun. At 42 years old, Sarah had built TechVision Enterprises from the ground up with her college friend Michael Torres. Together, they had turned their small tech startup into a billion-dollar company with offices in 12 cities. But something had been bothering her lately. The reports from their newest satellite office in Seattle didn't feel right. The numbers looked perfect, she muttered to herself, thinking about the weekly reports. Too perfect. In her 20 years of business experience, Sarah had learned that when things looked too good to be true, they usually were. The idea had come to her during a late-night meeting with her old friend Maria, who worked as a cleaning supervisor. "Nobody notices the cleaning staff," Maria had said. "We're like ghosts, invisible but seeing everything." That conversation sparked a plan in Sarah's mind. Now, 3 weeks later, she was preparing for her boldest move yet. Her executive assistant, Jenny, was the only other person who knew about her plan. Together, they had created a new identity, Susan Chang, a middle-aged immigrant looking for honest work. Sarah picked up the worn-out backpack she had bought from a thrift store. Inside were a packed lunch in cheap plastic containers, a used thermos, and a small wallet containing her Susan Chang ID. The ID was legal. She had registered it properly, but it would help maintain her cover story. She pulled on the dark blue uniform that thousands of cleaning staff wore across the country. The material was rough against her skin, so different from the silk blouses she usually wore. Her designer shoes were replaced with comfortable but worn-looking work sneakers. "Remember," she told her reflection, practicing the slightly broken English she would use, "you new here. Very happy for job. Want work hard." She had spent weeks practicing with a language coach to perfect the accent. Not too strong, but noticeable enough to make people dismiss her. The drive to the Seattle office felt strange. Instead of pulling into the reserved parking spot with her Mercedes, she parked her rented Toyota Corolla in the far corner of the employee lot. It was 5:30 a.m., the time when cleaning staff started their day. Maria met her at the service entrance, playing her part perfectly. They had arranged for Susan to be hired through Maria's team, and only Maria knew her true identity. "Remember," Maria whispered as they walked in, "keep head down, work steady, don't talk much. That's how we survive." Sarah's heart pounded as she entered the building through the back door for the first time. The office looked different from this perspective, darker, bigger, more imposing. The morning cleaning crew moved quietly through the halls, pushing carts and carrying supplies. They nodded to each other but barely spoke. Maria showed her around quickly, supply closets, break room, emergency exits, and the cleaning schedule. Sarah paid close attention, knowing she would need to perform her duties convincingly. They practiced using the industrial vacuum cleaner, and Sarah learned how to properly clean office bathrooms, something she'd never done before. "You clean third floor today," Maria instructed loudly, for the benefit of anyone within earshot. "Offices and meeting rooms. Important people up there, be careful, be quiet, don't disturb anything." As Sarah pushed her cleaning cart toward the elevator, she caught her reflection in the shiny doors. Gone was Sarah Chen, the powerful co-founder of TechVision. In her place stood Susan Chan, the invisible cleaning lady. The transformation was complete. The morning passed in a blur of actual cleaning work. Sarah's hands grew sore from scrubbing and wiping, her back ached from vacuuming, and her feet hurt from standing. She developed a new respect for the physical demands of the job. Around 8 a.m., office workers began arriving. They walked past her without a glance, some even dropping fresh coffee cup rings on freshly wiped surfaces. By noon, Sarah had cleaned 15 offices and 2 meeting rooms. She had overheard 3 confidential conversations that no one thought she would understand. She had seen 2 employees crying in the bathroom and witnessed a manager taking credit for his assistant's work during a video call. As she ate her packed lunch alone in the small break room designated for cleaning staff, Sarah thought about the days ahead. She had given herself 1 month to understand what was really happening in this office. 1 month to experience life from a completely different perspective. 1 month to learn if her company was truly living up to its values. What she didn't know yet was that this experience would change not just her company, but her entire view of the world. On her 3rd day as a janitor, Sarah first experienced the sting of mockery. She was quietly cleaning the glass walls of Conference Room B when James Morrison and his team walked in for their morning meeting. James, a marketing director in his mid-30s, wore an expensive suit and carried himself with an air of self-importance. "Oh, great," he said loudly, not even looking at Sarah. "Can't you do this some other time? We have important work to do." The 5 people within laughed, and Sarah kept her head down, continuing to spray and wipe the glass. "Hey, cleaning lady," James called out. "Lady, do you understand English?" He spoke extra slowly and loudly, the way some people wrongly talk to non-native speakers. Sarah nodded quickly and gathered her cleaning supplies. As she turned to leave, James' assistant Emmy whispered, "At least she knows how to nod." More laughter followed Sarah out of the room. She felt her cheeks burn, but reminded herself why she was here. Later that morning, Sarah was emptying trash bins when she overheard James talking to his team in the break room. "Did you see her fake designer bag?" he snickered, referring to Sarah's intentionally worn backpack. "Probably got it from the same place she got her work permit." Sarah's hands tightened around the trash bag she was holding. As CEO, she had always prided herself on creating an inclusive workplace. Now she wondered how many similar conversations happened daily without her knowledge. The mockery grew worse as the week continued. Some employees started playing a game they called Clean Sweep. They would deliberately spill coffee or drop food just before Susan Chine was scheduled to clean their area. They would then time how quickly she cleaned it up, making bets and laughing among themselves. "New record," shouted Tom from accounting one day after Sarah rushed to clean up his deliberately spilled coffee. 3 minutes flat. "Hey guys, that's like what? $1 per minute in her salary?" The group around him burst into laughter. Sarah documented everything in a small notebook she kept in her locker. During lunch breaks, she would sit alone in the cleaning staff break room, writing down names, incidents, and patterns of behavior. The other cleaning staff rarely spoke to her, used to keeping to themselves for safety. One rainy morning, Sarah was mopping the lobby when Lisa Chen, no relation, from Human Resources walked in. Lisa's designer heels slipped on the wet floor despite the warning signs Sarah had placed. "Watch what you're doing," Lisa snapped, steadying herself. "Do you want to get sued? Do you even know what that means?" She spoke as if talking to a child. Sarah apologized quietly in broken English, which only seemed to irritate Lisa more. "James was right about you people," Lisa muttered, loud enough for Sarah to hear. "Can't even do a simple job right." The incident spread through the office quickly, but not because of Lisa's behavior. Instead, people joked about the cleaning lady who almost took out HR. Sarah heard the story retold multiple times that day, each version making her seem more incompetent than the last. By the end of her first week, Sarah had filled several pages in her notebook. She noticed how some employees would switch to exaggerated, broken English when talking to her. Others would speak about her as if she wasn't there, making comments about her appearance, age, or assumed background. The worst part wasn't the obvious mockery, it was the subtle dismissal. People would walk through doors she held open without acknowledgement. They would continue private conversations as if she were invisible. In meetings, they would point at mess for her to clean without even looking at her face. One afternoon, Sarah was cleaning windows near James's office when she overheard him on the phone. "Yeah, we'll definitely hit those diversity numbers," he was saying. "We just hired 3 new cleaning staff. They count, right?" He laughed. "I mean, technically they're employees. No one said anything about job levels in the diversity requirements." Sarah's hand trembled as she wrote this down. As CEO, she had pushed for diversity initiatives across all levels of the company. Now she was witnessing how some managers twisted these policies to maintain the status quo while technically meeting requirements. That evening, as Sarah drove home in her rented Toyota, she thought about how different the satellite office was from her vision for Tech Vision. The company she and Michael had built was supposed to be a place of innovation, respect, and opportunity. Instead, this office had developed a culture of mockery and discrimination, hidden beneath a polished surface of professional reports and perfect numbers. Little did her mockers know, every laugh, every joke, every dismissive gesture was being noted by the very person who could change their lives with a single decision. By her second week as Susan Chang, Sarah began to see clear patterns in the office's toxic culture. Like a hidden camera in the walls, she watched the daily dramas unfold while she pushed her cleaning cart from floor to floor. The office operated like a small kingdom, with James Morrison as its unofficial king. From her quiet position, Sarah watched him take credit for others' work with shocking regularity. One morning, she was cleaning near his office when Jenny Martinez, a young programmer, tried to present her new software solution to him. This code could save the company millions in processing time, Jenny explained eagerly, showing James her laptop. Sarah pretended to dust nearby shelves, listening carefully. 2 hours later, Sarah was cleaning the conference room when James presented the same idea to senior management via video call. "I've developed a breakthrough solution," he announced proudly, using Jenny's exact words. The young programmer sat in the corner, her face tight with anger but remaining silent. The hierarchy was clear: James and his inner circle at the top, then the regular employees, and at the bottom, the support staff like cleaners and maintenance workers. Sarah noticed how the kitchen staff would scramble to hide their coffee cups whenever James's group entered the break room, how the mail delivery person would wait by the door rather than enter certain offices. One day, Sarah was cleaning the women's bathroom when she found Mai, a new data analyst, crying in a stall. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked in her practice-broken English, offering tissues. "They did it again," Mai whispered, seemingly grateful for someone to talk to. "They invited everyone from the team to lunch except me and David. They said it was just a coincidence that the only Asian team members weren't included." Sarah added this to her growing mental list. She had noticed David, a brilliant analyst, being consistently overlooked for prominent assignments despite his excellent work record. The office politics played out in subtle ways too. Sarah observed how Lisa from HR would warn certain employees about upcoming layoffs, giving them time to prepare, while leaving others in the dark. She saw how meeting rooms were assigned. James's favorites got the best spaces with views, while others were pushed to windowless rooms in the back. During team meetings, Sarah would quietly empty trash bins while watching the dynamics. When junior employees suggested ideas, they were often dismissed. But if one of James's favorites repeated the same idea later, it was praised as brilliant. She noticed how female employees had to work twice as hard to be heard, often being interrupted or talked over. One particular incident stood out. Sarah was cleaning near the IT department when she overheard a conversation between James and Tom from accounting. They were discussing year-end bonuses. "Move some of the bonus money from Martinez's and Wong's departments to our team," James was saying. "Corporate won't notice if we adjust the performance metrics a bit. They never check the details anyway." Tom laughed. "What about that email from headquarters about fair bonus distribution?" "Please?" James scoffed. "Like anyone from corporate ever actually comes here. They're too busy in their fancy offices to care about what happens in a satellite branch." Sarah's hand tightened around her mop handle. Every word they spoke was another nail in their professional coffins, and they didn't even know it. The most disturbing pattern Sarah noticed was how information was controlled. James's team kept two sets of reports, one showing the real office situation and another polished version for headquarters. She discovered this while emptying James's trash, finding discarded drafts of reports with dramatically different numbers. The cleaning staff faced the worst treatment. Sarah's fellow cleaners shared stories with her during lunch breaks, thinking she was one of them. They told her about denied breaks, unpaid overtime, and how complaints to HR mysteriously disappeared. Maria, the cleaning supervisor, confirmed that this treatment had gotten worse since James took over the office's management. By the end of her second week, Sarah had filled an entire notebook with observations. The satellite office had developed its own corrupt ecosystem, completely contrary to TechVision's core values. It was like a disease had taken root, spreading through every level of the organization. That Friday evening, as Sarah changed out of her cleaner's uniform in the small staff locker room, she heard James's voice echo down the hallway. "Make sure that cleaning lady finishes the conference room early tomorrow. We can't have her disturbing my presidential presentation. Some big shots from corporate might actually show up." Sarah smiled to herself. James had no idea just how right he was about corporate showing up, or just how close they already were. The morning of James Morrison's big client presentation started like any other day for Susan Chang. Sarah arrived at 5:30 a.m., changed into her cleaning uniform, and began her usual routine. Today, however, felt different. The office buzzed with nervous energy as employees prepared for an important meeting with potential investors. Sarah carefully cleaned the main conference room, making sure every surface sparkled. She could hear James practicing his presentation in his office. "Our company values diversity and innovation above all else," he rehearsed loudly, making Sarah shake her head at the irony. Around 9:30 a.m., well-dressed executives began arriving. Sarah recognized many of them from previous business meetings, but none of them recognized their CEO in her janitor's uniform. She kept her head down, dusting nearby surfaces while listening to their conversations. James strutted around, greeting everyone with fake warmth. "Welcome to TechVision's most innovative branch office," he boasted. Sarah noticed how he had positioned Jenny Martinez's computer setup prominently in the corner, ready to take credit for her work again. The breaking point came just minutes before the presentation was set to begin. Sarah was finishing up some cleaning in the hallway when James walked past with his expensive coffee. Their eyes met briefly, and a cruel smile crossed his face. What happened next seemed to happen in slow motion. James deliberately tilted his coffee cup, spilling the hot liquid across the freshly cleaned floor. "Oops," he said loudly, making sure others could hear. "Cleaning lady, we need this cleaned up immediately. We have important people here today." Sarah looked at the mess, then at her watch. She was scheduled to clean the employee break room next. "Sorry, sir," she said in her practiced accent. "I finish other area first, then come back." James's face turned red. The visiting executives watched with interest. "Listen," he snapped, stepping closer to Sarah. "I don't think you understand how things work here. When I tell you to clean something, you clean it immediately." "But schedule," Sarah began. "I don't care about your schedule." James's voice echoed through the hallway. "Do you know how easily I could have you replaced? There are dozens of people who would be grateful for your job. You're just another replaceable cleaner who probably doesn't even have proper papers to work here." The hallway fell silent. Several executives shifted uncomfortably. Jenny Martinez, who was walking by with some presentation materials, stopped and stared with wide eyes. In fact, James continued, seeming to enjoy the attention. "Let me make this very simple for you. Clean this up now, or I'll call HR and have you fired before lunch. Understanding English better now." Sarah stood perfectly still, her hands gripping her cleaning cloth. In her 20 years of business, she had dealt with difficult people, but experiencing this level of disrespect firsthand was different. She saw Lisa from HR nodding along with James, already reaching for her phone. The moment stretched out as everyone waited to see what the cleaning lady would do. Sarah noticed Jenny Martinez's hands trembling as she clutched her presentation papers. She saw the way the other cleaning staff kept their heads down, trying to become invisible. She watched the visiting executives' uncomfortable expressions, none of them willing to intervene. This single moment captured everything wrong with the office culture she had been observing. The bullying, the power abuse, the silent witnesses, the fear. It was all here on display. Sarah slowly bent down and began cleaning the spilled coffee, her movements deliberate and dignified. James smirked triumphantly. "See? That's how you handled these people," he said to one of the executives, not bothering to lower his voice. As she cleaned, Sarah made her final decision. She had seen enough. This wasn't just about coffee on a floor. It was about human dignity, respect, and the values her company was built on. She had planned to continue her undercover work for another 2 weeks, but this incident changed everything. Later that day, as she wrote her final notes in her secret notebook, Sarah planned her next move carefully. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, James Morrison and his entire toxic leadership team would learn exactly who they had been mocking. "Time to clean house," Sarah whispered to herself, but this time in her natural voice, without any accent. "And I'm not talking about the floors." After the coffee incident, Sarah became even more watchful in her role as Susan Chang. Like a silent camera recording everything, she moved through the office, observing conversations and interactions that people thought no one would notice. Late one evening, while cleaning the executive floor, Sarah discovered something interesting. James had forgotten to log out of his computer. As she cleaned his desk, his email notifications kept popping up on the screen. One particular email chain caught her eye. James was taking credit for a revolutionary app design created by David Wong, the overlooked Asian analyst. The app will generate millions. James had written to senior management. I've been working on this concept for months. Sarah knew this was a lie. She had watched David working late nights, developing this app by himself, only to have James claim it as his own creation. During lunch breaks, Sarah sat quietly in the corner of the staff room, eating her packed sandwich while watching the office dynamics play out. She noticed how the tables were unofficially segregated. James's favorites sat at the center tables, while junior staff, particularly minorities and women, gathered at the edges of the room. One day, she overheard two young employees talking about her real self, the absent co-founder Sarah Chen. I heard she's never around because she doesn't care about satellite offices, one said. Probably too busy counting her millions. Someone said she's traveling the world on the company's money, another added. Must be nice to be at the top. Sarah smiled sadly behind her cleaning cloth. If they only knew their co-founder was actually wiping tables next to them. The most revealing moments came during after hours. As part of the cleaning staff, Sarah had access to the office when most employees had gone home. She watched Jenny Martinez stay late every night, perfecting her code, only to have James present it as his work the next day. She saw Mike crying in the bathroom after being excluded from another teen lunch. Sarah also noticed the good things. David Wong quietly helping new interns with their projects. Jenny sharing her lunch with the security guard who often missed his break. The maintenance man fixing employees' personal laptops for free during his lunch hour. One particularly interesting discovery came when Sarah was cleaning the HR office after hours. She found a stack of rejected promotion applications in Lisa's trash. Every single one was from an employee outside James's inner circle, despite their excellent qualifications. In the copy room, Sarah found shredded documents that, when pieced together, showed how James and his team manipulated performance reviews. They gave low scores to talented employees they wanted to keep down, while inflating the ratings of their favorites. The rumors about Sarah Chen's absence grew wilder each day. I heard she's in rehab, one employee whispered. No, she's having secret meetings with Google to sell the company, another claimed. All while the real Sarah Chen quietly vacuumed their offices. During team meetings, Sarah would enter with her cleaning cart, appearing to dust, while actually observing everything. She watched how James would shoot down ideas from female employees, only to praise the same suggestions when repeated by his male favorites minutes later. She saw how Lisa from HR would conveniently lose complaint forms filed against James's team, how Tom from accounting would adjust numbers to favor certain departments, how talented employees were slowly being pushed out through subtle harassment and discrimination. One morning, Sarah overheard James talking on his phone in the empty conference room. Don't worry about headquarters checking, he laughed. Sarah Chen never visits the satellite offices. She's too caught up in her fancy CEO life to care about what happens here. That evening, as Sarah changed out of her cleaner's uniform, she looked at her collection of notes, photos, and documents. 3 weeks of undercover work had revealed a pattern of discrimination, harassment, and corruption that went against everything Tech Vision stood for. She picked up her phone and sent a simple text to her executive assistant at headquarters. It's time. Schedule an all-hands meeting for tomorrow morning, and make sure everyone attends. As she drove home in her rented Toyota, Sarah thought about all the hard-working employees who deserve better. Tomorrow, she would show James Morrison and his team exactly what kind of CEO she really was, one who cared enough to clean toilets to understand her company's true culture. The next morning would bring changes that no one in the satellite office expected, least of all the man who thought mocking a janitor was perfectly acceptable business behavior. Sarah spent her final days as Juzhen Chang carefully gathering solid proof of everything she had witnessed. Like a skilled detective, she used her evening cleaning duties to build an airtight case against James Morrison and his corrupt team. On Monday evening, after most employees had left, Sarah started with the accounting department. She knew Tom usually forgot to clear his computer screen before leaving. Tonight was no different. While dusting his desk, Sarah used her phone to photograph spreadsheets showing how bonus money was unfairly distributed. The numbers clearly proved that James's favorites received larger bonuses, while more deserving employees got much less. This is why Jenny Martinez can barely pay her rent, Sarah whispered to herself, while James keeps buying new designer suits. In Lisa's HR office, Sarah found even more shocking evidence. Hidden in a folder marked personal, she discovered emails showing how Lisa helped James block promotions for talented minority employees. There were also deleted complaints about harassment that Lisa had covered up instead of investigating. Sarah remembered Mike crying in the bathroom and David's brilliant ideas being stolen. Now she had proof of why their careers never moved forward. The biggest discovery came when Sarah was cleaning James's office late Tuesday night. While emptying his trash, she found torn pieces of paper. Carefully, she pieced them together like a puzzle. The papers revealed a secret plan to take credit for David Wong's app design and sell it to another company for personal profit. Taking credit for others' work in meetings wasn't enough, Sarah thought angrily. He planned to steal their ideas completely. Sarah also collected video evidence. She placed her phone discreetly during her cleaning rounds, recording how James and his team treated other employees. One video showed James yelling at a junior programmer for pointing out a mistake in his presentation. Another caught Lisa making racist jokes about the cleaning staff during a lunch break. The security cameras helped too. Sarah asked the friendly security guard, who had no love for James, to save footage of important incidents. These included James's coffee spilling incident and several instances of his team deliberately making messes for the cleaning staff to handle. Wednesday morning, Sarah focused on gathering statements from employees who had been mistreated. During her lunch break in the staff room, she quietly talked to other cleaners, maintenance workers, and junior staff. Many were scared to speak up, but they trusted Susan Chang because they saw her as one of them. James made me work unpaid overtime 6 times last month, one cleaner confided. When I complained, Lisa said I should be grateful to have a job. Sarah recorded everything in her notebook, which was now full of dates, names, and specific incidents. She also had photographs of falsified reports that James sent to headquarters, very different from the real situation in the office. One of the most valuable pieces of evidence came from Jenny Martinez. Sarah was cleaning near Jenny's desk when she heard the young programmer talking to her mother on the phone. "Yes, Mama, they took credit for my code again," Jenny said, crying quietly. "But I saved all the original files with timestamps. I just don't know what to do with them." Sarah made a special note of this. Jenny's files would prove exactly who created the code that James claimed as his work. By Thursday afternoon, Sarah had collected 47 photographs of falsified documents, 23 videos of inappropriate behavior, 15 voice recordings of discriminatory comments, 32 written statements from mistreated employees, copies of 28 ignored harassment complaints, proof of bonus money being unfairly distributed, evidence of stolen ideas and projects. That evening, Sarah organized everything into clear, detailed files. She made copies and stored them securely in 3 different places. No one could deny or hide this evidence. "Time to clean up this mess," Sarah said to herself, but not with a mop this time. She sent 2 important emails that night. One to her executive team at headquarters, attaching all the evidence. The other to the satellite office staff, announcing a mandatory all-hands meeting tomorrow morning. As she packed away her cleaning uniform for the last time, Sarah looked around the quiet office. Tomorrow, everything would change. James Morrison and his team had no idea that their cleaning lady had just built a case that would end their careers. The next morning's meeting would be very different from what anyone expected. The invisible observer was about to become very visible indeed. The morning of the all-hands meeting arrived with unusual energy in the office. Everyone noticed that something was different. Security guards stood at every entrance, and several important-looking people from headquarters filled the reception area. James Morrison walked in wearing his most expensive suit, looking confident as ever. "Probably just another boring company update," he told his team, straightening his tie. "I'll make sure to keep everyone awake with some jokes about our cleaning lady." At 9 a.m. sharp, all employees gathered in the main conference room. Sarah arrived early, still dressed in her cleaning uniform, and quietly began wiping down tables as usual. She noticed Jenny Martinez and David Wong sitting in the back, while James and his inner circle claimed the front row seats. "Where's the video team from headquarters?" James asked loudly. They usually broadcast these meetings. Nobody had an answer. At 9:15 a.m., Lisa from HR stood up to start the meeting. But before she could speak, Sarah straightened up from her cleaning position and walked to the front of the room. The room grew quiet, confused by the cleaning lady's strange behavior. "What do you think you're doing?" James called out. "We're about to start an important meeting. Get back to your cleaning." Sarah turned to face the room. She reached up and removed the plain glasses she had worn as part of her disguise. Then, in perfect English, she spoke. "Actually, James, I called this meeting." The room fell silent. Sarah continued, her voice clear and strong. "For those who don't recognize me without my usual business attire, I'm Sarah Chen, co-founder and CEO of TechVision Enterprises." The effect was immediate. James's face turned white. Lisa dropped her phone. The entire front row seemed to shrink in their seats. In the back, Jenny Martinez's mouth fell open in shock. "For the past month," Sarah continued, "I've worked as a member of our cleaning staff in this office. I wanted to understand why our satellite office's reports seemed too perfect, why employee turnover was so high, and why innovation seemed to have stopped." She clicked a remote, and screens around the room came to life. What I found was disappointing, to say the least. Over the next 20 minutes, Sarah presented evidence of everything she had discovered. She showed videos of James bullying, documentation of stolen ideas, proof of bonus manipulation, and records of covered-up complaints. "Jenny Martinez," Sarah called out, "would you like to explain who really created the code that Mr. Morrison presented as his own last week?" Jenny stood up, trembling but determined. "I did," she said clearly. "I have all the original files with timestamps to prove it." "And David Wong," Sarah continued, "would you like to tell everyone about your app design that was about to be sold without your knowledge?" The room erupted in whispers as David explained how his work had been stolen. James tried to stand up, but security guards moved closer to the doors. "But the most disturbing thing I discovered," Sarah said, her voice growing serious, "was how this office treated people they thought weren't important. The cleaning staff, junior employees, minorities, anyone without power." Sarah played the video of James spilling coffee and threatening her job. Several people in the room looked away in shame. "I built this company on values of respect, innovation, and equal opportunity," Sarah declared. "What I've seen in this office goes against everything TechVision stands for." She then began announcing changes. James Morrison and his entire leadership team were fired, effective immediately. Security would escort them out after the meeting. Lisa from HR and Tom from accounting would also be leaving. "Jenny Martinez will be our new technical director," Sarah announced. "David Wong will lead our app development team, and every employee whose promotion was unfairly blocked will have their case reviewed by our headquarters HR team." The room burst into applause. Some people were crying, others hugging. Maria, the cleaning supervisor, had tears in her eyes. As security began escorting James and his team out, he turned to Sarah in desperation. "You can't do this. I've made this office profitable." Sarah stepped closer to him, still in her cleaner's uniform. "No, James. The people you mocked and belittled made this office profitable. You just took the credit." As James Morrison walked out of TechVision for the last time, Sarah turned back to address her employees. "Now, let's talk about building the company culture we all deserve." 3 months after Sarah Chen's dramatic revelation, the satellite office had transformed into a completely different workplace. The changes were visible from the moment anyone walked through the front doors. Jenny Martinez, the new technical director, had turned the previously tense office into a hub of innovation. Her first act as leader was to remove the reserved signs from the best meeting rooms. Now, any team could use them based on project needs, not office politics. David Wong's app development team occupied the space where James Morrison's inner circle once sat. The team was diverse, talented, and most importantly, everyone received credit for their work. David made sure every team member's name appeared on project documents, from junior developers to senior programmers. Sarah kept her promise about reviewing unfair promotions. Mai, who once cried in the bathroom after being excluded, now led her own data analysis team. Her first project earned the office a company-wide innovation award. The physical office changed too. The cleaning staff no longer had to use a separate break room. Instead, a new large cafeteria welcomed all employees, from executives to maintenance workers. People sat wherever they wanted, and conversations flowed freely across job titles and departments. "Remember when we couldn't even eat lunch in the main break room?" Maria, the cleaning supervisor, said one day while sharing lunch with Jenny Martinez. Both women laughed, remembering how different things used to be. Sarah made sure the transformation went beyond surface changes. She introduced new company policies that became known as the Chen principles. First, every employee had to spend one day each month working in a different department. Programmers helped with customer service, managers worked with the maintenance team, and executives took turns helping the cleaning staff. This policy helped everyone understand and respect each other's work. Second, promotion committees now included members from all levels of the company. When a cleaning staff member sat on the committee reviewing a senior manager's promotion, it sent a powerful message about equality. Third, credit for ideas went to their true creators. The office installed a digital innovation wall showing real-time updates of who contributed to each project. Jenny made sure it highlighted everyone's work, from the person who first suggested an idea to the team that brought it to life. The most significant change was in how people treated each other. One morning, when a new employee accidentally spilled coffee, 3 people rushed to help clean up. No one made jokes or placed bets. Instead, they showed concern and offered assistance. Sarah visited the office regularly now, but not just for formal meetings. She would arrive unannounced, sometimes helping the cleaning staff, other times sitting with junior employees to hear their ideas. She kept her cleaning uniform hanging in her office as a reminder of what she had learned. The best ideas can come from anywhere, she often said in meetings. And the true measure of a company isn't how it treats its executives, but how it treats every single employee. 6 months after the changes, the satellite office's performance surprised everyone. Without James Morrison's fake reports and manipulated numbers, the real statistics showed remarkable improvement. Employee satisfaction rose by 87%. Innovation submissions increased by 145%. Staff turnover dropped to almost zero. Productivity improved by 65%. The office launched twice as many successful projects. The story of Sarah Chen, the CEO who worked as a janitor, became part of TechVision's company culture. New employees learned about it during orientation. Other companies studied it as an example of good leadership. Business schools taught it in their management classes. 1 year after the revelation, Sarah organized a special celebration in the office. Everyone attended, from the newest intern to the maintenance staff who had witnessed the whole transformation. The cafeteria buzzed with conversation and laughter as people shared their memories of the changes. During the celebration, Jenny Martinez stood up to make a toast. "A year ago, this office taught us that titles don't define people," she said. "Our CEO showed us that true leadership means seeing the worth in every person, no matter what job they do." Sarah smiled, looking around at her transformed office. She saw Mai confidently presenting her latest project, David mentoring new team members, and Maria training a new group of employees on respect in the workplace. The old signs of executive floor and staff only had been replaced with a single message that hung in the lobby. At TechVision, every role has value, every voice matters, and respect is not earned by title but given to all. The cleaning lady who changed everything had created more than just a better workplace. She had built a community where dignity, respect, and opportunity truly belonged to everyone.